Hey class, I'm Blake Foster and I'm going to talk about where I see the United States in 2030, as well as some relevant geopolitical concerns. Now let's kick it off with some predictions. First, I think workers are going to be displaced by automation. And technological revolutions have happened before and people adapted, but what's different this time is that it will not affect only blue collar workers, but middle income jobs such as clerks, chefs, office workers, security guards, and junior lawyers, in addition to taxi and truck drivers, warehouse workers, cashiers, fast food employees, all of whom are on the chopping block. And next, there's the weakening of the US dollar. The petrodollar is one of the last things giving the USD any credibility, and as the world transitions away from fossil fuel, I imagine demand for Saudi oil declining and thus chipping away at the strength of the dollar. Which brings me to strong cryptocurrencies. We've seen the price of Bitcoin skyrocket. I can't pinpoint exactly why, but Bitcoin turned into a storage of value as opposed to a currency you'd actually spend. This is partially because few vendors accept Bitcoin, and mostly because the price has skyrocketed so much that owners would much rather hold than spend their precious Bitcoin on a pizza, which was the case 15 years ago. I can see altcoins like Ethereum being used as more decentralized apps are created. This gives users more control over their data. I'm anticipating a palpable shift in how people interpret their data and privacy on the internet. As it stands now, users effectively sign their life away and rationalize it with, well, I've got nothing to hide anyways. Or they're blissfully enjoying the efficacy of algorithms and apps like TikTok that understand you better than you do. This one feels obvious, but advancements and implementations of renewable energy are definitely on the horizon, and it's worth mentioning. In the realm of scientific breakthroughs, I'm most excited about quantum computing and artificial intelligence. Although artificial intelligence is still in its infancy, I think it's unquestionably one of the most exciting technological innovations in human history. We can see the promise of this technology in Google's DeepMind AI, which has effectively solved protein folding, an integral part of the drug research process. For reasons that I won't delve into or even completely understand, quantum computing is capable of processing information millions of times faster than current computers. Mature applications of artificial intelligence imbued with ungodly computing power are my best bet for America's Deus Ex Machina. If anything is going to save our skin in the fourth quarter, it's this. As for consumer experiences, they'll continue to get automated as staff are replaced with more cost-efficient alternatives. I also think malls will be either entirely reimagined or done away with. As it stands, they can't compete with either the abundance or convenience of online shopping. Unless malls are able to shift to experiential attractions, I don't see a place for them in the future. In a perfect world, they're adapted to become homeless shelters or public libraries, although it's far more likely that they turn into paintball arenas. And now I want to talk about some geopolitical concerns. I think tension between India and China could easily erupt into World War III. Water wars feel like the most likely source of conflict because it's a fundamental resource that the life of the nation relies on, and thus is worth going to war over. It has constructed a series of dams that threatens India's water supply. Not only do these nations represent the largest populations in the world, but they're also both nuclear powers. Additionally, India is an American ally, and we would absolutely be involved if war were to break out. In spite of all this, I see America adopting an isolationist policy, which will further destabilize areas ripe for conflict like Central Africa. The only thing currently stopping someone in Africa with Napoleonic ambitions is the threat of Uncle Sam intervening. I think this will be more relevant in the 2040s as the population skyrockets without the economic legs to stabilize it, thus leaving masses of dejected young people in convenient conditions for radicalization. And now for some concerns surrounding China. The aging Chinese population is the biggest dilemma the country faces. Elderly people consume and don't produce, and Beijing understands the clock is ticking and they need to solidify themselves as a global superpower before time runs out. And one of the ways that they plan on doing this is the Belt and Road Initiative. During the Trump administration, China managed to carve out more strategic space in the Middle East than anticipated. Partnerships with Saudi Arabia in 2016 and the United Arab Emirates in 2018 helped satisfy Chinese energy demands while also establishing diplomatic relations that will be necessary for their Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative is an incredibly important component of the future of China, as it would eliminate the reliance on sea-based trade. In controlling Eurasian trade routes, they'll easily be able to export goods to developing countries in Africa and won't have to be concerned with an intervening American navy. The Chinese economy is dependent on exporting cheap labor. And this is where the difficulty comes in, because it's not rich enough to be consumption-based like America or European countries, and it's not poor enough to compete with cheaper labor elsewhere. The Belt and Road Initiative, or by controlling India's water and turning them into a client state, are the most clear-cut solutions for China's economy going forward. An idea I want to keep in mind, but I'm not going to delve too much into, is Thucydides' trap, which is an idea that dominant powers crush rising ones before the rising one is strong enough to destroy the dominant power. Just use it as a thought experiment, or perhaps think about where the world will go with this. In my personal belief essay, I wrote about the idea of a litocracy, and although this won't be implemented in any way in the near future, I still hold the ideology dear to my heart. In my most optimistic interpretation, autocratic components could be implemented where single-issue legislatures are brought in to create or advise policy in areas that are otherwise irreconcilably divided. For those who don't know what a litocracy is, it's where, instead of having elected officials, they're chosen by random, or by lottery. As for how my predictions will impact my prospective career, I'm not entirely sure. I'm pursuing work in luxury fashion marketing, an industry that's far from essential. If worst-case scenarios were realized and the economy tanks completely, this will be one of the first things people stop spending money on. However, people aged 18 to 34 account for 60% of luxury website visits in 2020. It's quite possible that these demographics continue consuming against their better judgment. My geopolitical concerns regarding China are in part longer term than the next 9 years, and in this time frame, Chinese luxury consumption is anticipated to maintain some of the growth seen over the past 20 years. As it stands, the expansion of the luxury market into China has saved a number of brands, such as Christian Dior and Chanel. I'm interested to see how the industry will adapt to stagnated growth in the region. Out of fashion's power players right now, I anticipate Louis Vuitton to have the most influence by 2030. The reason why I'm backing LV is because they have the name recognition of Chanel without being pigeonholed into only producing women's wear. I envision LV as the brand that captures increasing metrosexual Chinese men with swaths of disposable income, largely because of, as I mentioned earlier, the name recognition, and their ability to appeal to every generation. The current director of menswear, Virgil Abloh, founded the streetwear brand Off-White, which was unquestionably one of the most popular brands amongst Chinese consumers. Not only does he understand his market, but he's now operating under a veritable fashion house that's capable of producing more than just screen-printed tees. Ironically, I think it's the stylistic vision established by his predecessor, Kim Jones, that will be the LV aesthetic to propel them to the top of the Chinese market. If I were to modify my goals according to things I've discussed, I would start learning Mandarin, as it would give me a massive competitive advantage over other foreigners interested in an equally vast and competitive space. I hope you guys had fun hearing my presentation, and that's all. Thank you.